Hey guys, it's time to get the brakes put back together on the 53 Ford. Follow along, I'll show you how it all goes back together. Thanks for watching. Little retainer clips on here on the wheel studs that hold the brake drum on. So either this has never been apart in the 100,000 miles that are on this truck, and the 28 or 29 years the vehicle was in service, or whoever took it apart always pulled the wheel bearing out. The caps are a little bit squashed, so I'm guessing that is probably the latter. That came out easy. Looks like it's in nice shape. It's not all rusty. Let me get the other one. I think I'm going to grab my respirator. I won't be able to talk to you guys, but one of the problems is brake dust from this vintage would be full of asbestos, and I don't really want to be breathing that in. This side is basically in the same shape as the other side. Going to need a bunch of light surface rust removed off all the hardware, but I don't see any major cancer. And I think it's the front side shoes still have lots of meat left on them, and probably the back side would pass a safety, but for the cost of a new set of shoes, I think we're going to go that way. Very good news. The bearings, I haven't gone in and cleaned them yet. I don't know if we're going to need new bearings or not. We'll give those a good cleaning before we decide whether we need new wheel bearings or not. We'll need a new seal for sure, and give everything a good grease job, but I'm very happy with how all that came together. It's basically supper time, so I'm going to go in the house and cook myself some supper. Before I go, I'm going to spray some penetrant on the brake backing plate nuts on both sides, and then when we come back out here after supper, maybe we'll get lucky and the backing plates will come off. Hey guys, we're back on the 53 Ford. I got this side stripped down to the bare spindle, of course, except for the steering arm. As I believed, it doesn't look like we're in too bad a shape. This is a little crusty, might need a little bit of repair, but doesn't look too bad. The backing plate looks good. I've ordered wheel cylinders, I've ordered wheel bearings, I've ordered a bunch of the consumable stuff here, new brake shoes. We'll get all of that in. I think the spring hardware, other than one of the little retainer washers, went zing on me. These guys. I think we're in fairly decent shape there. Might need some new hardware, but that's just generic brake hardware, not a big deal. I think we're in good shape there. I'm not going to make you watch me struggle, but these 4 nuts, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and that's the bottom you're looking at, need to come off of there. And then the hardware comes off, and it's a bit of a kind of beat on it a little bit to get that backing plate to come off. It's pressed on fairly snug, this surface in here, but not a big deal. I'm not going to make you watch me do that because there's not a lot of room for both of us in there where we got to work. Well guys, I've done some pretty substantial cleanup here on the brake hardware. Some of it's okay, some of it I think we're going to have to replace. The little buttons that hold on the shoe retainer screws, I'm not real happy with them. They're pretty degraded. I think we're going to replace those. These springs don't look bad, but I ordered in some miscellaneous brake hardware that includes new buttons and new retainer springs. So we'll use the originals if they fit better. If the new ones are going to fit fine, then we'll use them. Likewise, these pins, nails, whatever you want to call them, that attach, that the button goes down over, like that. That holds the shoe to the backing plate. They're a little crusty. That all comes with the hardware kit that I bought was a whole whopping $6. Comes with some replacement adjuster screws, and I also ordered in some adjusters. This adjuster is seized right solid. There's no way, until looking at it, put some heat to it. Ended up breaking a tab off down here trying to get it to break free, and it's just not coming. So for the $8 or a piece, I think they are, I ordered in 4 of them. May as well get good new ones, although this one I think is in fairly good shape. I'm going to start cleaning up the backing plates this evening, I think. And there's kind of a dirt shield here that I'm going to give a quick pass with the wire wheel and then get it in the rust remover, see how it cleans up. But basically we need to take the wheel cylinder off of here. I'm probably going to run that through the wire wheel just to try and take the worst of the scale off, but I think those are probably going to have to go for a ride in the sandblaster, which is just over in that way in the corner, and should be able to get it fired up without too much difficulty. I'll bring you guys back once I get a little bit of scrubbing going on here with the wire wheel. It's not a real great way to film doing that, so I'll bring you back when I'm done, and we'll see what things look like. Hey guys, we're back working on the brakes for the 1953 Ford. As you can see, I have been busy with the sandblaster, making some fantastic progress getting things cleaned up. There's still a little bit of black smudge on there, I guess, but it's not the end of the world. Using rust encapsulation paint, so if there's a little bit of rust buried in the pits, it's not the end of the world. Definitely cleaned up a lot better than what they were before, and I don't expect this truck's ever going to see salt ever again, so not terribly concerned about it, for the amount of hard use it's going to get. This will be just fine. I'm going to put a little bit of color on these. Well, I got to wipe them down first, then put a little bit of color on them, and that'll get us a big step forward in getting these brakes put back together. The parts ferry has arrived. A little bit of concern. I picked up just a generic kind of a Ford brake parts kit. It's actually for like a, I don't know, 67 to 72 or something Ford F100, but the hold down springs and the spring retainers, all that looks the same. We've got a couple of adjusters here. One of the front wheel adjusters was not salvageable from the existing brakes, so we reuse that. Wheel bearings arrived from Rockler, but there's no races. I guess with Rockler you got to order the races separate. Hopefully the races are decent that are in the existing wheels. If not, I will order those in as well, but that will delay reassembly. We've got our 2 wheel cylinders, brand new. There's some hardware in the bag here somewhere. New copper washers and a cap. I'm not sure what the cap's for. Or probably just fell out of the wheel cylinder. We've got a couple of brand new axle seals or spindle seals, new brake hoses, and of course the new shoes. Before we can assemble all of this though, I think we need to get some more work done. I'm not going to bother recording going at the drums with sandblaster or painting the backing plates, but I'll bring you guys back when I'm ready to start reassembling things. Well guys, I think it's time to start putting some stuff back together. What we've got here is a bit of a conglomeration of old and new that I'm hoping we'll be able to combine and turn into something that's going to work. I picked up a couple of different brake hardware packs. One came from O'Reilly's, the other one from Amazon, and just a few pieces from this kit, a few pieces from that kit. They were inexpensive, $68, not a big deal. We've got lots of the caps that hold the shoes flat to the brake backing plate. These one went flying. I don't know whether you can see, but the existing ones are kind of sprung out a little bit and still sort of crusty, so let's not fight with those. We'll use the new ones. These backing springs are basically the same as the originals, except they're not crusty, so we'll use those. These springs, here's the ones that I cleaned up with the sandblaster, and as you can see, they're pretty much identical. and we'll use the new ones. Likewise, we've got some adjuster plugs. These are the screws that hold the wheel cylinders in place, and they are original, just cleaned up. So I think we're in relatively good shape here. The new wheel cylinders are still in their packages up at the top, and I'm going to put you guys on the stand, start putting all this stuff together, and we'll see how it goes. So this is, of course, the backing plate. I've sandblasted it down. It's been painted in rust encapsulating trim clad paint, and just a little bit, but really there shouldn't be a whole lot of moisture floating around in here. Shouldn't be a big deal. This is a grease shield. Goes on something like that, and the idea behind this is as your bearings go around, your seal goes around, any grease that is slung off of the bearing ends up inside of the shield instead of ending up all over your brake pads. The shoes are going to go on kind of something like that. These two adjusters came out of the same kit. Ah, one is left-hand thread, one is right-hand thread. Before we start attaching the brake shoes though, I guess it's time to start putting on some wheel cylinders. I'll make sure that we don't lose our copper washer. Although I did save the old ones, better to use a new one. If you're going to reuse a copper washer, you have to anneal it, which is heated up with a torch till it's like glowing and then let it cool. That goes on there, and the brake hose goes on to that. When we put these on, we want the bleed port to be at the top so that air can come out. And we should make sure that our bolts are going to thread in, which they appear to do. When you're rebuilding old vehicles like this, rebuild kits are available for these wheel cylinders, but let's be honest, best to replace with new. Less likelihood of having nasty pits. This is the left-hand one, so it's going to be on this side of the vehicle. Seeing how this hose comes off, it comes up and goes into the frame, so that should work pretty well. You grab a wrench or a socket, snug these up, and we'll get that tightened up. The piston extensions. I'll make sure that the piston stays in the bore, doesn't get lost. And the notch needs to be essentially horizontal. There's a piston inside, or there's the two pistons, two seals, and a springs. So these rods are going to push back out every time you try and activate them. We'll put our dust shield or grease shield in there and drop the attachment bolts in. These bolts attach the brake backing plate to the spindle. I want to put a little bit of grease on this adjuster. Don't want too much because we don't want it getting on the friction surfaces. But at the same time, we don't want this to seize up in there and no longer be adjustable. You'll notice that the front brakes don't have any automatic adjuster on them like the rears do. But so having the ability to come in and adjust the brakes is going to be important. Just a little bit of the grease that I use on the mini excavator happens to be the on the grease gun. It's just off to my right here, so we'll use that. We're going to leave the brakes basically set as narrow as they can go, because obviously we've got our best case scenario with the with regard to the position of the shoes. Across the bottom, we've got these springs. Okay. This is the seized original. This is the aftermarket one, and they look like they should functionally work. However, I just looked through my parts order that came in from LMC Truck, and they have the reproduction ones. They've arrived. We may as well use those as opposed to using the aftermarket ones that are not designed specifically for this application. Doesn't break my heart to have a few extra brake parts kicking around. That looks like a little stouter product than the one that came with the $6 brake kit. Let me switch over to using these. I don't know how well you guys can see, but down under there is the notch that the adjuster goes in front of. We've got our front and back springs, and I think now we can put our pins in that hold the shoes attached to the backing plate. Washer, spring, another washer. Grab the tool. This is the tool that we use for putting these washers on. The kind of the wide point on the pin, line it up vertically. I don't think it really matters whether it's vertical or horizontal, just as long as you know what it is so that you can line it up and turn 90 degrees. These new pins are just a little bit longer than the originals, but I'm quite happy with how they're holding, so we'll go with them. We could modify them and make them a little bit shorter if we had to, but I don't think we do. And we can't even say that, oh, we're leaving or we're putting washers on the back side, so therefore the spring pack's going to be a little bit thicker, because the original had washers on the back too. So, or I should say the ones that we took apart had washers on the back side as well. I don't know whether that's original or whether that's something that's been done. As I said before, I think this truck had some brake and suspension work done to it. You know, not that long before it got parked. Now our shoes are attached to the backing plate. We take our big brake pliers. And hopefully we can convince this to work. It's one. There we are. Now we did get a little bit of a spread in that. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and just give it a little squeeze. Okay. I think we're fairly close to being where we need to be able to bolt this back on. I got to do the same thing with the second one. I'll bring you guys back when I got that one ready to go, and we'll get them bolted on the truck. 4 big nuts go on the bolts that go through the splash shield and backing plate, and they hold everything on. I'm going to see if I can get a couple more of these nuts someplace. One of them got a little bit chowdered up, taking it off. You know, in an absolute pinch it might work, but I'd really like to replace it if I can. That gets the backing plate started on there. Let me get the other side started on, and I'll put a wrench on these, snug them up, and then we'll look at the brake hose. Time for the brake hose. These are a little bit different than the ones that were on there, but I think they're just going to work. I think they're going to work no problem. Threads into the back of the wheel cylinder. With copper washer, don't forget the copper washer. And then we attach it to the frame with a big nut. Let me get a wrench on that. Don't want to overdo it and break anything, but at the same time, you want it good and snug because it is a fairly high pressure hydraulic system that we're dealing with. This is the original retainer nut, and it goes on the back side of the frame. I'm gonna have to get that snugged up. And there is what amounts to a bulkhead connector that we'll be hooking up our brake line to. The brake line is going to need to be replaced, and we'll get that run once we get the cab off and figure out what we're doing with the master cylinder. Now, one thing we want to do is run the steering limit to limit and make sure that that brake hose isn't going to interfere with anything. That looks good, and we are basically at maximum droop on the suspension at the moment. We're not having anything supporting that axle and having it just hanging on the springs. That's basically as far down as it's going to go. Let me swing the wheel around the other way and we'll see how the hose looks, because it is not super long. If this was the ride height, I might be a little bit concerned about how tight that has pulled. But with this being, as I say, at maximum droop, I don't think that's going to be a problem. The suspension is going to come up and give us a little bit of additional slack as we weight on the front end. We've got a great big chunk of cast iron, like one similar to that. And we've got a bunch of sheet metal that has to go on here, and I think we're going to find that there's going to be just a little bit of sag to that suspension when we do all that. So I think we'll be fine. Hey guys, we've got some brake hardware put back on this truck. How about we get some drums and wheels back on this thing? Paint is still drying on the other drum, but this one got painted last night. I had these in at the local machine shop, and they took a skim coat off just enough to clean things up. I was a little bit worried about max diameter. I don't see where it's marked on the drum anywhere here, but according to the manual, we can have 11-inch and 60 thou. And one of these, I'm not sure which one it is exactly 11-inch, 60 thou. And the other one's about 11-inch, 33 thou. So it's still got a little bit of wear material left in it. But this should pass the provincial safety check as is. So I think we'll mount these up. I was a little bit concerned about the bearing races. When I ordered them in, all I got was bearings. I didn't get races. Rock Auto apparently doesn't sell them as a pair. You got to buy each individually. So we've got inner and outer bearings for both hubs, and we got grease seals that go on the inside. Let me put you on a stand and get on some gloves, and we'll see if we can put a little bit of wheel bearing grease into these bearings. Certainly interesting. The seals are slightly different. I think they're pretty close, but they're definitely different. They do have the exact same part numbers on them. However, the second seal went in much better than the first. I don't know why the first was being so grumpy. Anyways, let me get you set up on the stand and we'll see what we got to do to get this thing bolted on the truck. The brake adjuster is in as tight as it'll go. I don't want to have it out so that it's going to cause problem putting this on. It'll need to be adjusted, absolutely for sure, but we'll leave it the way it is for now. When we actually get brakes working, we can think about adjusting things. Got a little bit of grease on the seal. We don't want to have too much. There is a grease, kind of a slinger here that collects the grease so that it doesn't end up on the brakes. But when you're dealing with front drum brakes, you don't want to be spraying too much oil around or grease. Really, you know, some people absolutely pack these hubs full of grease, but the bearings are packed properly. Lots of grease on the race and the bearing cage and the rollers and all of the all of the assembly. So I don't think that that is a problem. Let's slide this sucker on and see how it fits. So absolutely, I can feel there's no drag there whatsoever with the drum brakes. Those are going to have to get run out when we get to the point of bleeding the system. But we're a long ways from that yet. We've got our new outer bearing. We've got our keyed washer, castellated nut. Snug that down so that we get some preload on the bearing, and then we back it off. That feels good. The cotter pin. And that'll need to get trimmed off with a pair of side cutters. Clip this leg off so that it stays about even with the spindle. And then we trim this one off so that it can get folded back against the nut. That's got it, except for the dust cap that has to go on. I haven't got those cleaned up yet. So that is my next step. I don't think you guys need to watch me scrubbing old grease out of a dust cap and getting it on there. I'll bring you back when I'm ready to finish the assembly. Well guys, I think we're going to take that for a win. Yeah, I know there's only 2 lug nuts on each side. Over here, same thing. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. If you got this far in the video, can you give me one of those thumb up things? Give me a like. And if you want to see more content from Doug's Messy Garage, why don't you consider subscribing to the channel? Love to have you come back. There's some links to some merch below the video if you want to help me out in a little more direct manner. Help me buy some parts for this old 53 Ford. And we'll catch you guys in the next mess. Thanks for watching.